Here we are, Daniel Ramsey here with MyOutDesk. We're excited. Bob Cenk ×2, the sequel, because the first time we had some technical difficulties. But today we're talking about listing domination, and I've got Bob here. I'm really excited because he's got I would say it's a fresh take on being a real estate agent, and we just went through some really cool things that he's going to share. Bob, welcome. Tell everybody what you're up to.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks. Great to be on here and for take two, like you said. We were just getting rolling. We were having some fun, and then all of a sudden Google Hangout crashed. So sorry about that for everybody that's on here a second time, but we'll make sure we bring some value to everybody. So I don't know what I've been up to. Just to kind of, I guess, step backwards and tell people who I am or whatever. Daniel, I used to climb mountains for a living. So I used to travel all over the world climbing mountains. I've been on all 7 continents, climbed some of the hardest climbs in the world, and I always tease people. Say, well, how'd you get into real estate? And I always say it's the only thing more dangerous than climbing mountains I could find to do. So, and it's true oftentimes, isn't it? It's so very true that climbing mountains is surpassed in danger by doing real estate. So, but my fresh take on real estate that you were just saying, we were just talking about, we were chatting before everybody else jumped on today is, I think what's missing in real estate is adding value to clients, right? We don't have anything of value. We all try, but we really don't succeed at adding value to people. And it's usually the value you add is all about us. Me, me, me. I'm number one. I'm the best. I know this market better than anybody else. When you think about that, that's really not value for the customer, is it?
Right.
So I really like to add value for each and every client, and I start that with one of my favorite things, and the very best thing that I can do to add value to clients is to say thank you. And I think we miss that. We miss that. That I have a program called The Power of Thank You, and it's amazing. I ask agents, Daniel. I'm blessed to be on the phone with agents from all over North America every single day. And I always ask them, well, when's the last time you received a thank you card? I want everybody to think about this. When's the last time you received a thank you card? It's probably been a while, right? Okay. Then, how did it make you feel? When you've received one, Daniel, how did it make you feel? It makes you feel good, doesn't it? Yeah. So here's what we know about that, is that it's kind of rare to do, right? It's rare to receive a thank you card. But when somebody receives it, they're not like saying, if I get one from you, Daniel, it's not like I'm saying, oh, that Daniel's a slacker, right? I'm thinking, wow, that's really nice of him. What a great guy, and so forth. So, those are the little things that really add up to really big things. It's not that difficult to say thank you. But I like to say, Daniel, you probably know this quote from Jim Rohn. He would say, the easy things to do are the hardest things to do. And I added, the easy things to do are the hardest things to do because they're easy not to do. Right. So saying thank you is easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. And therefore you miss. We're always looking for, what can we do different or better than our competition? Wow, when you think about it, just saying thank you is that? Why not do it? Why not step it up and send out thank you cards, thank you notes all the time, or just thinking about you, or it was great meeting you for the very first time.
Right, or thank you for that referral, and thank you for having lunch, and thank you for being a client, and thank you for blah, blah, blah. I love it.
Yeah, and funny you said that, because we were talking a little bit before too about referrals, right? When you ask everybody, and I asked you what's the very best lead, you said referrals,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when I got into real estate 8 years ago, I remember asking people in my office, what's the very best kind of lead? Because I was excited, I'm coming from climbing mountains. So obviously I'm thinking real estate's easy. I used to climb mountains for a living. So I would say, oh, what's the very best lead? And people would say referrals. Oh, you just go there, you already have the buyer, you already have the seller, it's done for you. It's like, wow, great. And then I'd say this, I'd say, well, what do you do to get more referrals? What money and time and effort do you spend on referrals? And you know what people will say? Nothing. I don't. I say, well, wait a second. Okay, so what are you spending your time, money, and energy on? And they'd always say, oh, well, I have this great billboard, and I send this to people, and I farm this. I was like, well, those aren't as good as leads, right? You told me that referrals are the best leads. Yeah, they are. but you're not spending any time or money on referrals. And see, that made no sense to me. I couldn't grasp that concept.
Yeah.
So I made it my mission to really work on the very best kind of lead and to really show value, because it's easy to get referrals when you show value, right? When you receive value from somebody, then it's very easy for you to want to refer somebody else to them, correct? I mean, I think that's just human nature.
It's a law of reciprocation, right?
Exactly, the law of reciprocation. Reciprocity is an amazing, and powerful tool that most people never even spend the time working on.
Right.
And to me, that's kind of sad. You're really missing a lot of things.
Cool. So what if you're a real estate person? I want to pick your brain and get real. What are the 5 things you would do to drive referrals insanely, like nothing else?
The 5 things that I would do?
Or 3 or 4 or whatever.
No problem. No, I'd give you a bunch. First off, I would have a plan. I would write them down. What am I going to do to get those referrals? The very first thing is, and I have them here, I'd be sending out cards every day, 5 days a week. I just carry a little tablet. It's just 2-inch by 4-inch tablet. Hold on one second. I'll show you mine.
He's gone. He's off the
screen.
I'm
gone. I'm back. Look at that. Huh? So I carry this little tablet around. Purple's my favorite color, of course. So this is really technical, everybody, so get ready, and this is very expensive. Okay. Oh, Daniel, I have a client, his name's Bill, and he's been with me 5 months. And it took me a month to convince him to do thank you cards and to get this little book, this $1 book. And so what he does is every day he goes around, and if he meets anybody, interacts, or somebody pops in his mind, he writes their name down. Okay, if he just met them, he makes sure he gets their address, their email, their phone number, everything. Okay, because if you don't ask, you won't get it. And then he comes back and he writes out thank you cards each morning. Okay, sends them a thank you card. In 4 months, 27 leads, 27 referrals, 16 contracts, 16 under contract or closed in 4 months from thank you cards. So we figured out, we did the math on how much the cards cost. He's sending out 5 to 10 a day and everything else, and the time it takes him and so forth. And we figure it's $75 per closing, not per lead, per closing. Think about it, his average commission is a little over $7,000. Not bad, right?
Yeah.
By doing one activity. So that's where I'd really start.
Okay.
The other way, to get people's information, there's a great book called Fish. Maybe you've heard of it. It teaches 4 basic concepts. It teaches to choose your attitude. You can either have a bad attitude or a good attitude, right? What people are going to be more attracted to a good attitude? Positive people, other good people, like you, right? And like me. So choose your attitude. And this is based off of Pike's Place Fish Market out in Seattle. There's one fish stand. This is what I love. I love this story. There's one fish stand, Daniel. Have you been there? Have you been out there? Well, it's huge. There's probably 50, 60, maybe 100 fish stands. But there's this one fish stand that they wrote this book on that does these 4 things that I'm going to talk to you about. They outsell everybody else. No one even comes close to their sales. Okay? And everybody else says, oh, it's just a gimmick. It really doesn't work. But they outsell everybody. And they do 4 things. They choose their attitude. When they're with a client, they're present. So, you've probably been guilty of it. I have. You're at, you go to Starbucks and you're like, yeah, I'll have a latte. Or you're looking at your phone and so forth. You're not really present, right? Or you're talking to somebody and you're really not there. So they choose their attitude. It's going to be positive. They're present. And then they do something like make their day. Okay? They interact with them. They say something like, wow, I really like that shirt, Daniel. No, I don't suggest somebody lies like I just did.
You don't like my shirt? What's wrong?
But see, I just went to the 4th one immediately, Daniel. I not only made your day, but I then had fun with you, right? And if you do those 4 concepts, you choose your attitude, if you're present, if you make their day and you have fun, and then you ask them something that's amazing, because you said, how do I get leads? What are the things I do? Well, I then say something really tricky. I say, you don't happen to know anybody thinking about buying or selling a home, do you? And do you know 70% of the time, Daniel, people say yes? Yeah. 70%.
Yeah.
Hey, do you like free leads? I do. That's free. That wasn't really any special. All I did was chose my attitude. I was present. I made their day, and I had fun. And 72% of the time, people say, yeah, I have, yeah, I do. Well, some of you might be cringing right now and say, oh, I can't do that. That's not in my nature or whatever. Well, you can learn it. Or would you rather spend money on things that don't work? Because when you get somebody that says, yeah, I do know somebody, you're getting what? A referral, right?
Right.
And your net dollars, your net income is through the roof. So I would do, that's a program that I wrote called Success with Free Leads. And just plain and simple, I have a great YouTube video from a client, Brooks Nicholson. He's in New York City, Daniel. This is a you can see him on YouTube. He talks about it. I was teaching him Success with Free Leads, and he's like, I don't know if it'll work. I don't know, it's not going to work here. And I said, listen, prove me wrong. Please do me a favor and prove to me that it doesn't work. I said, as soon as we hang up with this call, I want you to go outside, go down out of your apartment. The first person you interact with, I want you to choose your attitude, be present, make their day, have fun, and then ask them, do they know anybody think about buying or selling? He said, okay, I'm going to do it. So this is after months of talking with me, so he does it. He talks to a street vendor who he said, Bob, I even picked somebody I thought wouldn't know anybody. So he picks this street vendor. He's really nice to her, having a great time. And he says, you don't happen to know anybody think about buying or selling a home, do you? And she says, I need to sell my place here. So 2 days later, he goes and lists it. 45 days later, he closes it and gets a check for $11,400. Not bad, right?
Yeah, I love it.
But we pass up those people every day. Isn't that sad? We pass those people up every day.
Yeah, I wonder why. What's the mindset that needs to shift?
I think I do have an answer for that. It's value. Most agents don't know how to deliver value.
Right.
They don't know that they're worth that $11,400. The great thing that Brooks had is he had the tools and so forth in place. He had something of value to deliver to that woman, even though he'd never listed a property before. He now had the value. He had a home selling guide. He had a brochure that he showed her that he would use for her home. He showed her how to price her home with an equity evaluation. A lot of value, even though it was his first listing.
Yeah.
So, I think it's agents don't have the value, and therefore they're then intimidated to ask a question like that. Or they say, that's just not for me, I can't do that. And then I always say, when somebody says that to me, it's, well, riding a bike might not be for you either, but once you start trying it, it gets pretty fun and you get good at it, and it's easy. Well, same with this. It just takes a little bit of time.
Right. So what are the other couple ideas about referrals? Like, I love being present and having fun. I think that's a brilliant move. What other? So thank you cards.
So most people, we all have. Well, hopefully we all have past clients, right? That we've worked with. But the sad thing is, most of us don't stay in touch with those people. And if we haven't stayed in touch with them, we then feel guilty about starting it back up again, and that's really sad. Because I can't remember ever calling somebody early on that I hadn't followed up with and saying, hey, how's things going? And them on the phone saying, you jerk, don't ever call me again, and hanging up on me. That's never happened. But that's the fear in most agents' mind. So stay in touch with your past clients. Show them what you're doing. Show them the value, because maybe you added the value later. So what I have people do is I have them go around and show their buyer presentation or their listing presentation, which is very professional. It shows value. So I know this. If you had a buyer in the past, what are they going to be in the future?
Seller.
Okay. So even if they're not selling right now, I want to go and meet with them. I want that collision. I want that interaction with them, because I want to show them what I'm doing now. Because they have a perception. Everybody has a perception of what we do in real estate, right? Mm-hmm. And usually it's wrong, okay? Or it's justified, because there's a lot of, unfortunately, the threshold to get into this industry is pretty easy.
Zero threshold, almost. Yeah, somebody goes like this and goes,
I have a fix for it. Yeah,
you can't do anything else, so maybe you should be a realtor.
I have a fix for it, like in climbing. I always tell people I could fix real estate, the real estate industry.
Yeah.
Because in climbing, if I made a mistake, what would happen?
You die.
Yeah. Okay. So in real estate, there's the fix.
Okay.
Obviously. But if you treat the business like that, Daniel, think where you would take it. If you treated the business that serious, If you spent the time on your business, when I was climbing for a living, I can remember hanging out front of my house, upside down, with a rope tied to me, okay, hanging upside down with my mittens on and having my kids swing me and then hit me with a wiffle ball bat while I tried to tie knots. And they said, Dad, this is crazy, you're doing this. And I said, well, would you rather me practice now here at home or when I'm hanging upside down inside of a crevasse and I've never practiced it before?
Right.
When you start taking this profession as serious as your life depends on it, then you'll have success.
Yeah.
Most of us don't.
I love it. In take one, you had some really good sign ideas that I loved.
Oh, okay, great, yeah. So another way to get leads.
Yeah. Free referral and or listing leads. I thought those were brilliant ideas. What were those?
Okay, so we have buyers, and most of us in a balanced business, I believe in focusing on sellers. When you focus on sellers, you get buyers, and you'll have a 50-50 business. It's just inevitable.
Yeah.
Okay? So I do focus on sellers, but because of that, because I have so many listings, I get a lot of buyers, and it ends up being 50-50. Well, I looked at buyers, and I looked at my business, and I said, well, signs are always a great draw for me. You get phone calls, right? They're ready now buyers.
Yep.
I thought, wow, how can I use that? 50% of my business is buyers. How can I use signs with buyers? So what I thought is when a buyer buys one of my properties, I get them to agree when they're signing the contract, which is very easy to do, to let me put a sign up in their yard once it closes for 2 weeks. And it just says sold. So it's crazy. When I first started doing this, I was amazed. If you can imagine, I get these kind of calls, Daniel. People say, XYZ company had that home listed for 6 months or a year. You had it for 1 day and sold it. And who makes that call, by the way? Sellers.
Other sellers.
Sellers call you and say, wow, because that's all they really care about is sold. And really that came about from a client saying, I don't care about what you have listed, I care about what you've sold. And that was a good point. And I thought, wow, I should show people. Now I have more signs up, double the amount of signs I had before because my business is balanced, right? So I have almost double the amount of signs up, and at least half of them say what? Sold. And so then, of course, we're very transparent. We get to that, to that appointment, and we tell the people, we brought in the buyer. But the point is it works, and it costs you next to nothing. It's very inexpensive, very dollar productive.
Yeah. Well, and your phone rings, and free leads come because of it, and that's what matters.
That's really. I mean, for a sign up and down, I believe our cost is right under $50. We have somebody else do it. If somebody else's sign is still there, it's a very easy process. It's a very easy system because that's what I'm always looking at. I want something that's repeatable and easy to do, right? So it's a very easy system because all you really need is one piece of paper that says what day the sign goes up, which is the closing day, right? And what day does it come down? That's 2 weeks from that date. So that's very easy. The only trick is you have to, if your closing gets pushed back, you have to make sure you then notify the sign company. Okay, because those are fun calls to get from another agent.
Yeah, but you can just have your virtual assistant follow the closing and then order the sign switch out, right?
There you go. Absolutely perfect.
Shameless plug.
Well, no, but it's also the truth. It's also the truth, but it's a very easy thing for them to do, and it generates business for you. So our sign company, if they're not dealing with the same broker, in other words, a broker that uses them all the time, they'll just take the sign and put it down nice. Okay, on the side of the house or next to the sign so the other people can come and pick it up, and then our sign goes up with sold, and it generates leads for next to nothing.
What else you got, man? I love it.
Okay, I've got more.
That's a good one.
All right, how many people involved in a transaction? How many parties?
Too many. Lots.
No, how many parties? How many? There's a buyer and a seller.
Two.
Okay.
I thought you meant like lender, escrow, title. Yeah. Okay, two parties.
We'll get there too, but there's two parties involved in a transaction, right? A buyer and a seller. And I always looked at that and said, okay, well, my goal is to represent both, but that doesn't happen all the time. Now, my goal is to make it happen all the time, to do everything I can to make sure that happens as much as possible, but it's not going to happen every single time. But until I spend some more time and figure that out, I'm trying, I'm working on that. All right, so there's a buyer and a seller. Let's say that I represent the seller, okay? Somebody else brings in the buyer, okay? I now know what about that buyer? I know their name. I know their address, right?
Yeah.
We're closed. Is their agent going to stay in touch with them? And be honest.
98% of the time, no.
Think about that. 98% of the time. I would say it's more like 99% of the time, but we will give you that percent. So 98% of the time, the answer is no, they're not going to. Every buyer is going to become what?
Seller.
A seller at some point. So what do? Is I stay in touch with not only my client, the seller, but I stay in touch with the buyer as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote an action plan called Co-Broke Buyer. So my goal is in 1 year to have them converted to feel like, and this works all the time, like I was their buyer. We actually have to sometimes argue with people. No, you know what? We didn't bring you in to buy that home. We just sold it to you. And they're like, oh no, you guys did everything. So they don't realize, because we're the ones staying in touch with them day in, day out, year in, year out over time. So it becomes, we almost brainwashed them somewhat that we were their agent. And we were in a way too. So agents always say, well, how do you do that? How can you get that information?
It's on the closing docs.
Exactly. It's an easy document that just says, oh, well, what I do is I give the co-broke my seller's information. I say, here's the sheet. Here's all my seller's information. Our seller would like to stay in touch with your buyer. Please fill that out. And 90% of the time they do. Occasionally they'll say no. Are they going to stay, if they don't stay in touch with their customer, are they going to stay in touch with mine? So there, I just doubled your sales right there. I doubled your lead generation right there. Sure. By staying in touch with both parties. And people say, well, that's not fair. And what do you mean? Well, how's that not fair? The deal is closed. It's over with.
Yeah.
So we should let that buyer become somebody else's lead? No. That should become your lead.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so we're also, the whole point of this is your 5 times formula for listing dominations. Like that's what we're gonna. We haven't gotten a chance to talk about that yet, but let's break those down. There's 5 different kind of steps or parts to it. So drop some knowledge about your approach on the listing domination side.
Okay, so first off, the 5 different steps. I'll walk you through each one of them. So first, it's prospect generation. Okay, we have to generate, right? We need to get leads. So some of the things I talked about were like the signage and so forth. Okay, but there's free leads everywhere. So I talked a little bit about success with free leads. But what about for sale by owners and expireds? The messaging, when I researched this, the messaging to for sale by owners and expireds from real estate agents is wrong. Okay, you're trying to tell somebody you're better, or here's everything you did wrong. Let's take a for sale by owner. Okay, let's get into their mindset. What did they just do? They decided they do not want to work with a real estate agent. Is that correct?
Right.
I don't want to work with a real estate agent. So for one reason or another, they have their perception, right? And what are most of the scripts and everybody promising, 30 leads in 30 days and 90 listings in 90 days? They're just, I'm better, I'm number one. Well, the for sale by owner doesn't care about that. Okay, so I thought, wow, our approach as real estate agents is wrong. So what I did is I said, well, what I'm going to do is, instead of wanting to list the property, is I'm going to help them sell their property. I'm going to do everything I can to help them sell their property. Think about that. Now, if you had a listing in your MLS and you brought a buyer to that, right? What's the difference between that and a for sale by owner? The MLS has already agreed to a commission percentage, right? All you have to do, it's just one little step to get the for sale by owner to agree to that as well. Okay? Then bring them buyers, but also tell them, here's what I do to get property sold. Here's my home selling guide. Here's exactly what I do. Here's my brochure that I do. Here's all the marketing that I do. Let's face it, there's too much. They can't do it, but we're showing them value. And I think we're really missing. So that's a great generation tool as well. Okay? Generating with for sale by owners and expireds, because those are people with their hands up really high saying, I want to sell my home. And if we asked all the agents that are on the hangout today, how many of them show for sale by owners? It's going to be very few. Very few.
I think there's another point, and my part of the world right now, our inventory is like less than 3 months. I mean, we went from having like 5 years of anywhere from 9 months to 2 years worth of inventory. So all the properties you could ever think that you might need as a real estate agent to now, we have 3 months of inventory, and there are multiple bids, and there's not enough property. So I think it's smart to not ignore this other opportunity to close a transaction.
Yeah, to get paid. Because, by the way, there are very few buyers that are seeing for sale by owners and that are seeing expireds. That's inventory that's there that they don't know about. And so it sets you apart as a buyer specialist as well. And let's get to that term too, because I started that a few years ago, like 5, 6 years ago. And I think you heard me talk about it at one of the first events, right?
Right.
I don't want to hire, if I'm really sick or whatever, I don't want to go to a general practitioner. I want to go to a specialist, right? Mm-hmm. So we referred everybody on our team as specialists, buyer specialist, listing specialist. Okay, even until I, all the way through, the last thing I gave up was listings. I was a listing specialist. That's it. And it's just that if you want to be different than everybody else, then you have to be referred to in a different way as well. So that's just a quick tip on that. So prospect generation is the first step, okay? And dominating listings. The next step is you really got to convert them, okay? You have to be able to convert them. And the best way to convert people is with services like what you have. Plain and simple. You got to get on the phone with them. Okay. Yes, you can send them thank you cards, which helps. Okay. You have to show them things of value, which helps. But you have to convert them. So that's the next step. Most people don't know how to convert. Okay. Then once they are converted, how do you then prepare for the appointment? In other words, I found that most sellers determine who they're going to hire before you even show up. They already have in their mind who they're going to hire. Well, that means then you better have really good pre-appointment preparation. Okay? So I give them things of value. And one of the things that we're going to give everybody on the call today is my 75-point checklist. It goes through what you need to do, 75 points to get your home ready for photography.
Right.
It's basic. It's easy. But you should see my sellers go crazy over it. They're like, wow. No one ever gave me anything like that. I mean, this took me, I don't know, years ago I did it, but it took me maybe an hour or two, and it has made me so much money. So that helps you with the pre-appointment preparation because you send that to that appointment that you're going to have tomorrow or tonight, and they're like, wow. And it's theirs no matter what. But it's reciprocity. Are the other agents sending them anything like that, by the way, Daniel? No, right?
No, because it takes time, energy, and effort. And the funny thing is that's not expensive. If you FedEx them or send it through regular mail, it's cheap, and you can deliver it, and they can have at least, these are the things I need to think about to get my house ready. I think
one up it a little bit. Don't even FedEx it and everything else. I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing, but why not just shoot it to them in an email? They at least have it, and then bring it to them and give it to them as a deliverable when you're there to reinforce that email. You look more like a professional.
Right.
Okay. The other one for conversion, people always, or pre-appointment preparation, the other thing that really wins me my appointments is so easy, and it is made me so much money. When I come to a listing, I knock on the door 3 times. I'm very rehearsed. So I say the same thing. When they open the door, I say, are you ready to get your home sold today? It doesn't matter what the response is. What I'm trying to determine is I have a lead sheet. Does my lead sheet where it says D, I, S, or C, is it accurate? In other words, do I know their personality type? Because I'm a high D. If I go and deliver a high D presentation, 3 out of 4 times it's not turning out well, right? The S's, the C's especially are going to kick me out. Right? So when I ask that question, if it's a high D and they say, yep, let's get our home sold, I know, well, this is perfect, right? An I is going to say, oh, do you know such and such? And look at my awards, right? An S is going to say, well, it really depends on my family situation and so forth. right? A C is going to say what? Well, you know, it's going to depend on the numbers. So, but at least it gives me that one question, prepares me for the presentation. But the next step is the one I wanted to go over because it's so easy for everybody to do.
Well, I love, okay, before you go, but I think people on the call need to really understand the power of what you just said. Most people know personality profiles from hiring somebody. Like if I'm hiring a salesperson, I want a DI. If I'm hiring a support or a operations person, SC or CS. But having this concept front and present when you're going to a listing presentation, I think it's a big deal because, you know, if like you said, they're a numbers person, you've got to focus all of your presentation on the numbers, you know, and pound those details in. And I think too many people walk in and just do their canned presentation and their particular scripting and which everybody else teaches, but catering it to the people on the other side. If they're a high I, you're like, oh yeah, I know her, and I sold their house, and I'm going to sell your house just like that, and don't worry, I'm going to take care of you. By the way, you can have my phone number, like whatever their personality profile is, and like knowing that up front is going to just change your deliverable, and it's going to change the way you connect with someone.
You have to, and you know, something that you said, Daniel, that the vast majority of agents that I talk to have no plan of attack. They don't have a system that they follow when they go to listing form. They wing it. I mean, that's the reality. I know there's probably a few agents on here that say, no, I am very prepared, but for me, I'm going for the Academy Award each time. I'm giving the very best presentation I can, okay, and it's very structured, okay? So from how many knocks? 3. People always say, why only 3? I said, I don't know, because it's different than 2 or 4. You know, it's just, I want to be in that mode, that repetition, right, that I'm going to do it the same way. And then I say the same thing. Are you ready to get your home sold? And then the next thing that I do blows people away, and everybody here is going to say that's too easy. Remember, we started this conversation on easy things to do, the hardest things to do, because they're easy not to do. All right? And the next step is won me so many listings, and that is this. I say, you know what, let me take my shoes off. It's as easy as that. And people say, well, what if they say don't bother? Then I don't. But I've won so many listings just from that one technique. Just saying, by showing the sincerity, people will tell me, you know, we've had 5 other agents here and they didn't even care, you know, about walking. We prepared our home and everything else. They didn't even care about taking their shoes off, you know. Or remember, honey, that one agent, she had those high heels and put the dents in our carpet. And so I take my shoes off. Now, the only key is you have to make sure you don't have socks with holes in them, right? You know, so, but... Dude,
the one takeaway from our hangout, take your shoes off on a listing appointment. I love that.
That's great.
This is going to be this is going to go down as the most unique hangout ever. Bob Cenk says, take your shoes off. All right. So
don't knock it until you try it. Don't knock it until you try it. So I know you're not, but I'm suggesting to everybody else, don't knock it, okay? And then selecting the seating for everybody, where they sit and so forth is very important. So I prepare everything. And then it's your presentation. The 4th, so, you know, is what's your presentation look like? Is it very professional? And I got this, Daniel, you know, I believe everybody wants to move up their sellers, right? They want to get better and better sellers because then you get better and better buyers, right? You get better calls. And what I mean is by move up the value, correct? Yeah. So when I looked at that, I thought, well, how do you move up in value? Well, you have to deliver what those people expect. So what I did, Daniel, is I interviewed, okay, I have a board. So I invited, I'll tell you real briefly, I invited 100 and some people to be on my board, and only like 5 said yes. That's okay, but they're very important people. And so what I learned from them is I asked them, I said, when you are given a sales presentation at work, okay, now these are the people, Daniel, that are buying the multi-million-dollar homes and so forth. So right. I want to know how they're used to being presented to. I said, when you are presented to at work, how does that look? And every single one of them says the same exact thing. Oh, it's very professional. It's a PowerPoint presentation. They have a computer. They have handouts for us and everything else. And I thought, voila. Why aren't I doing that? If I want to move up my value, right? If I want to add more value, but I also want them to understand my message, then I have to talk to them in what they're used to hearing, in the way that they're used to hearing it, okay? And that really changed my business. So the presentation is definitely the kind of the next step, you know, in the 5. And then it's pricing. And that was the one that I really, I don't know. But I'll tell you a quick story. So I had some buyers that were working with one of my buyer specialists. And they went and saw this home. And my buyer specialist came back and said they really liked it, but the pricing seems off. So we researched it and everything else, and it was listed at $399.9. And by the way, that's a mistake, and I'll teach everybody that today too as another tip. So $399.9, and we were looking at about $320. So I thought, well, I'll just call the agent. Before I call the agent, I do something that I find is very rare in this industry, but I had to do as a mountain climber. I researched the mountain while I researched the other agent. I wanted to know how many homes she sold last year, what her average sold price is, her ask to sold ratio, her absorption rate. I wanted to know everything about her. So I did that. It took me about 5 minutes. And then I called her. And I said, you know, hi, this is Bob Cenk from the Bob Cenk. And she'd go, oh, hi, sweetie. I also believe you need to learn your verbal skills, right, and how you talk to other people. But so she didn't know. Do you think she researched me, by the way? No, right? Of course not. So I called her and I said, well, you know, we're having some confusion here on the price. And she said, oh, don't worry, honey. We had an appraisal done. Oh, okay. I said, can I get a copy? She said, of course. So fires me off this appraisal.
Mm-hmm.
Sure enough, on the very front page, it says $400,000. That's what it says. I did something very strange, Daniel. You might find this unique. I opened it and then read it.
Yeah.
And guess what? There were homes that weren't in the same school district, that were across major highways, everything else, that they weren't real comparables.
Right.
And what we found out happened is the appraiser came to the seller and said, what do you think it's worth? They said about $400,000. That's what he appraised it at. And then he backed it in. Now your eyes are going like that, but remember what got us into the nightmare in real estate that we're in was appraisals, right? It's still somebody's opinion, okay? Yep. It's not exact science. But what I learned from that activity, and by the way, we got the seller back their money for that appraisal. Yeah. We didn't get the house because they couldn't sell it. You know, they were short. But we got them to get their money back because it wasn't a true appraisal. Then I told the other agent, I said, why don't you just send it to one of your underwriters and see if they would accept it? And the underwriter said, no, we won't accept this. This isn't a real appraisal.
Right.
But what I learned was that perception is reality. Okay? So the fifth PowerPoint, the fifth thing that I do is I make sure I do pricing better than anybody else. So I developed a system to price properties, right? Because it's perception. So I come up with, you know, an inch-high book. Okay, most of it's from the MLS. I talk about the comparables. I talk about the list of sold ratio, the average days on the market. I do a technical analysis. I do an internet analysis. You know, a lot of times our buyers and sellers are getting their pricing from where? The internet, right?
Zillow.
And how often is Zillow right?
Well, Zillow reports on minimum they typically have a 15% variance from what they report to sales values. And it
exactly.
And I think in New York, I think it's like 24%. And
so we show them the value, and we deliver the value pricing so that we then can get paid. Right. So those are the 5 systems, you know, from prospect generation to, you know, prospect conversion to pre-appointment preparation to then your presentation and then the pricing. And those are the 5 things that I focus on each and every time because I want to get paid. I want to make sure. And the only way I get paid is if I price the property right, correct? So let me just teach everybody one thing, you know, because that's a lot to put together. It doesn't take long for us because we've mastered it, because we're very good at it. But I was talking about price bracketing, and it's one of my big pet peeves of real estate agents. And I want everybody to think about this because it's a message to deliver to buyers and to sellers because rather than telling them you're the very best, you're showing them you're very best by this one explanation, and that is price bracketing. Okay? And what I mean by that is agents are making a critical error in pricing properties right now, in my belief. They are pricing, if it's a $300,000 property, they're pricing it at $299,999. Right? You see it all the time. The problem is most searches are online, right? And the algorithms that we use to search, right? All the search engines go by round numbers, don't they?
Yeah.
So anybody searching up to $300,000 is going to find that home, right? Anybody searching from $300,000 and up misses it over $1 or $100 or $1,000. And it happens time and time again because we're not bracketing our properties. We're not putting them where they could be in 2 brackets. Because if you're at $299,999, you're in 1 bracket. If you're at $300,000, you're in 2 brackets. And believe me, people aren't making a buying decision over $100 or $1. And I've done it time and time again. The last time we did it, well, not the last time, but the last time I did it, it was a home that was $400,000. And nothing had sold for under $400,000 in years in this community. And they had it listed at, and this is absolute truth, $399,999. So I met with them. I did all this that I told her, take my shoes off, did the pricing and so forth. And I said, look, your only problem is pricing. And it was an estate, so it was a brother and sister. And I remember the sister looking at the brother and said, that's what every agent says. And I said, yes, they're absolutely right. You're $1 off. She said, what do you mean? I said, you should be at $400,000. Oh, no, that'll never work. And I explained her price bracket and she says, wow, that makes so much sense. So we put the property on the market, $400,000, 21 days later, sold it.
Sold.
Because people, I always use the analogy, if you had 2 cars, they're exactly the same. And they're on a car lot. One's dirty and one's clean. It's priced the same and everything else. Which one's selling first?
The clean one.
The clean one, okay. So, because I believe 3 things sell everything. Cleanliness, showability, which is cleanliness, marketing, and price. All right? So then what does that agent do with that car? Do they clean it? No. They drop the price, don't they? All right? Do they market it anymore? No, it's a dog. It hasn't sold yet. So they drop the price more. They drop the price. And then, Daniel, you come on the lot. You're like, hey, Bob, I'm looking for this car. And I was like, Daniel, I have the perfect car. Here it is. And here's the price. And what are you thinking? What's wrong with it?
I'm going to get it lower. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and what's wrong with it? It's way below where it should be. So, look, I think we have created this business, and it's our own fault. We have looked at this business and looked at, instead of adding value and talking about really easy things to do, we're always looking for gimmicky things. We're always looking for that, squirrel. We're squirrel, right? We're distracted.
No, hold on. What people are looking for is a way to pay for success. Like, and it's like, I don't want to write the thank you cards. I don't want to actually pick up the phone and call that person. I want to pay and have somebody else do it, or like the whole done for you marketing that's coming. And it's just like, dude, it's fine, but just do the work.
Yeah, it really is, and that's why we talked about before is segmenting into the 5 C's as well. It's just doing the work. It's just doing the things that you need to do in order to have success. And most people just miss it. That's all. They overcomplicate this business, rather than just simplifying it and being very determined and working it each and every day.
Right. Okay, I've got the Q&A up, and we have about 15 more minutes, and we've got a ton of people on, and so Bob is going to answer the questions, and we're going to keep going. We've got a couple things. What besides the 75-point checklist? Is there anything?
Yeah, you're also getting. I'm going to also give you my For Sale by Owner ebook, and it goes through everything my process for going to For Sale by Owners. Okay. The verbiage that you use, what you should say to them, what value you should add to them. Okay. How to talk to them, and so forth. I think everybody will find it a very good read, and it's very easy to implement. But again, you have to take action to actually implement it. So you're going to get that, my For Sale by Owner ebook, and then you're going to get my 75-point checklist. I wanted to find things that would add value, not only to the agents on the call, but to your customers as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Okay, so if somebody because you only like scratched on the surface, because the formula for listing domination, it's a huge program. Tell us a little bit about it, because if somebody's on here and they like the fact that you take your shoes off and they want to read more or get more information, I think, where would they go? How would they get it? What does it look like?
So our Listings Domination Academy, what we'll do is we'll post. I'll post the link to it. It's 6 modules. Well, it's 5 things that we just talked about, and the 6th module wraps everything up. So it's step by step what we do, spelled out to you week in and week out. So it's one of the problems I had with a lot of the coaching that I took was that it was too much. It was overwhelming, and I would get paralysis from analysis. So what I was very conscious of doing is piecemealing a process flow through.
Yeah.
Okay, week 1, here's what you're going to do. Week 2, here's what you're going to do. Always having access to it, okay, so that people could get something in place so that they could dominate listings like I do. And it's my entire system for dominating listings.
Perfect.
Okay?
That's awesome. Okay, and also, so for the free giveaways, you guys, you're going to go to myoutdesk.com/Bob Cenk, and it's BCENK. And we're going to be able to give you guys the 75 photos and the for sale by owner. And then in this Google, we're in the replay and on this spot, we're going to actually post a link if you're interested in finding out more. I know the listings domination, it's super cheap, like $4.95 or something like that.
Yeah, it's really inexpensive. And then we're also going to do, if for anybody that registers too, they're going to get a one-on-one call with me.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yep.
That's cool. Then okay, so
30 minutes with me, and I guarantee on that call when I go through, because that's when I'll go through with them the 5 C's, and you like that, right?
Yeah, no, I did. I think it's a good look. If you're in real estate, my world is learn as much as you can from the folks that have been doing it a long time and have great systems and processes, and that's why we really had you on the line, Bob, because you have great systems. Okay.
And by the way, Daniel, real quick, the link for the listings domination is learnaboutlistingsdomination.com. Okay.
Perfect. We'll throw that up there.
You can send that to everybody. Yeah.
Yep, we'll throw that up there too. Okay, so Bob, what would you leave everybody with? Like, if you were talking, and most of our clients are pretty high producing, 100, 200, they're doing good in terms of transactions. I got to bag a little bit. We just hit 1,000 virtual assistants placed with clients. And so that's always amazing. I always feel very blessed with that. But what would you tell those guys? What advice would you leave them as we end the call today? To help them move their business to that next step.
I would really take a look at your business and make sure that you're adding value to everybody. That you're maximizing each and every transaction in each and every client. Okay, because we're usually not. We're letting too much fall through the cracks. Okay, we're not sending out the thank you cards, and everybody's like, even a top producer's like, well, that's not really an important thing. Well, that's a great admin thing, So they're just on my desk, already filled out, and I just write inside. Okay, it's looking at each listing, at each buyer, as not just that listing or not that buyer, but many more buyers, many more listings. What can you do to add value to them so that they have no choice but to refer everybody they encounter to you? Okay? So are they getting everything that they should? Not are you just selling their houses, right? How can you maximize that? Because what I found is most, especially most producers, what they're doing is just getting a listing, going on to the next one, getting a listing, going on to the next one, getting a listing, going on to the next one, instead of taking that listing and making sure they have a process in place to maximize the profitability of getting that listing, and making sure they're squeezing that lemon for every possible lead there is out of that listing or out of that buyer.
Right.
So there's huge opportunity there. And then, a perfect example was how many parties in a contract, right? In a closing, 2, buyer and seller. How many are doing that? Because you're leaving money on the table. Does that mean that 100% of them are going to want to work with you? No, you're going to have people that use their brother or their cousin. You know, I have a great example of one where I did 7 transactions. It was somebody else's buyer. It was his college roommate. They ended up, because I stayed in touch with them, believing that I was their agent and not their college roommate, using me to help them buy, referred everybody to me, 7 transactions out of 1, and they were initially not my client. So do you see how you're maximizing the profit from that one interaction? Okay?
Yeah.
That's what I would encourage everybody to really look at. Are you doing that right now in your business? And if you're not, then take steps to add one thing at a time so that you are maximizing that.
That's awesome. All right, Bob, it's been great to have you here. BobCenkCoaching.com. If you guys want to follow up with him, we're going to post it here. Don't forget to download the free giveaways. They're really valuable. And thanks for your time, man.
Thank you, Daniel. This is great. I really appreciate you. You know, I was telling you before that you know, a few of my clients are now working with you too, and they're so excited. You guys are fantastic. You know, it's so nice to hear, especially I had one client, a really, really good client of mine that was working with somebody else, and I was like, you got to give Daniel a shot. You got to talk to Daniel. You got to talk. And, boy, you guys just knocked it. He was like, well, I'm going to test. And literally, Daniel, in 1 week, he was like, nope. He called me, and he said, I fired the other company. I'm going solely with this. So thank you. Thank you for the value that you bring as well.
Good stuff. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.